Why should you ever bring people into this environment? I mean, this is the great Ikoyi built with the people's money. It was the Nigerians, historically, the people themselves, who go and check the history, taxpayers' money. It was a colonial thinking and theory of separation that brought about Ikoyi, that says the city has to be divided. Do you still want to live and breathe on this colonial thinking of we needing to be segregated or separated?
We need to create space physically for low-income people as well. In Cairo, people actually managed to live together in the center of the city. Rich, poor, old, young, right? There's something driving that. It's not accidental. It can never be. We cannot leave it to market forces. The government has to step in and show the direction.
Thanks for joining in. Another exciting time to unveil matters that matter. So many places across Nigeria, we find it interesting that there are buildings waiting to be lived in, with the plan of being lived in. But then it doesn't turn out to be so. Well, that conversation we want to unlock today, and we say welcome to the show. I am Ph.D. Amelem. Now, as you already know, pretty much of this is supported by HBS, that's the Heinrich Böll Foundation. They do great work by supporting activists, thinkers, and yes, social thought leaders on quite a number of things in the civic space and many other places. Yes, to get on, the conversation is brought to you by Fan Radio Co. in partnership with HBS Abuja, produced by Vibing Brands. For more content such as this, follow Volume Pods and you get the best of it. All right, let's resourcefully introduce our guest for today. Let me start with Deji. Deji Akinpelu of Rethinking Cities, Lagos. One of the fantastic work I did follow up when I was reading up on him and watching quite a number of the elements he works on was the fact that it never crossed my mind that abandoned buildings could be reused. But then he found a niche, he's working on that niche, and he's getting the best of it. Just to read a little bit more about him, he's a self-taught photographer, so I'm posing, and of course a filmmaker focused on African development and cultural heritage for over 7 years, documenting the stories of Nigeria's indigenous and marginalized urban communities. His work, blending photography and documentary filmmaking, highlights human rights, citizenship, and resilience, and sparking vital conversations, such as this one, Deji founded Rethinking Cities Initiative, RCI, a platform uniting arts and media to address African urban challenges through innovative solutions. And of course, RCI's advocacy includes 2020, in 2023, don't get elected to get us evicted. Deep thoughts. And that's a campaign that's meaningfully brought a lot of attention to quite a number of things around housing, as one would find. And I will go on extensively, and of course you can read much of his profile as you would find below much of this video description. Also today with us is Temilade Sesan. Yes, I almost got that. I wanted to resort to the Yoruba one. Sesan or Sesan. Okay, she holds a Ph.D. in sociology and social policy from University of Nottingham, UK. Her research interrogates the social, political, and cultural dimensions of sustainable development initiatives in the areas of housing, transport, and urban infrastructure, particularly as they intersect with issues of gender and informality in Africa. She has published extensively on pathways to co-creating inclusive urban development with marginalized groups. She currently leads the African Cities Research Consortium, a program of the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office led by University of Manchester and implemented by the Centre for Housing and Sustainable Development at the University of Lagos. Both of you are welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Apologies, I don't have coffee for you. Let's start from there. I know it's an early day, but it's an interesting one when one was start to think about this. Now, I know Lagos. I've lived in Lagos. I can call the places that are cities inside cities, and I also can call the places that are slums inside slums. There are places that are very meticulously demolished year in, year out in some parts of Lagos, for Makoko and the likes of that. But there are also some places that are deserted. The buildings are fine. They are repainted. How did you come to merge both worlds to say there's a story to follow through? Let's start with Temilade, and of course, I'll follow through with Deji.
Okay, thanks very much for having me once again. So, just to say before I start, as I was driving in, I noticed the landscape. I've not been to Abuja in a while, maybe about 6 months, and certainly not to this part of town. And I thought to myself, oh, Abuja is becoming fast, looking like Lagos. The sort of organic, like urban character. Abuja is this, to my mind, contrived city, and whereas Lagos is more of a living city. Lagos makes itself and remakes itself all the time. And congratulations to Abuja. I think Abuja is getting there.
The party, so
I think Abuja is getting there. Just in terms of what you're saying, there are different aspects, different sides to the city, and it's the people that make the city, right? We're big on, the government is big on things like master plans, trying to, and I know that, for example, Abuja is like the model master plan city, but in Lagos you have people making their built environment, co-creating it in ways that are not ceremonial or ceremonious, and just getting along with life. So I think that there's a clash potentially between that way of living and making a living and these plans that are imposed from above. So you say you zone something and say it is for this, and then you paint it, you make it look nice. Something looking nice is not exactly the same thing as it being nice or useful. I came across this fantastic quote, I must drop it here, by Nicholas Grimshaw, a recently deceased British architect. And he said something like, I will paraphrase, like we need to stop looking at buildings like handbags on shelves, right? Like, and architecture is great, built environment is great, it's good to have fine things, just have, these plans. But we should stop thinking of buildings as masterpieces or artifacts, and think of the functionality. Think of for whom, who is it serving, what population, what segment of the population is it serving, and importantly, what segment is being excluded. For me, that's the core of what I do. I focus on inclusion because many of our policies, plans tend to be exclusionary. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay, that's a very powerful quote to follow through on. Okay, let me get
so I'll take it from. Let me just try and take it up from there. So year in, year out, basically, you always hear the states, the government speak of the fact that they are trying to meet the housing need of the people, and then you always have initiatives. In Lagos, for instance, you have LBIC, you have LSDPC, you have Lagos. And there's always this big question about how these agencies or these parastatals or special agencies, how they are trying to meet the housing need of particularly the urban poor, the low-income earners of the city. And obviously, from the things that we have seen, they've not been able to do anything in that regard, particularly for the low-income group. So that now begs the question, what is the way forward? There are always issues around, cost of building, etc. We cannot sell below market price. A former governor of Lagos State once said that how do you expect us to sell? Even government be able to deliver housing below market price, which I've always argued that that statement is not true. It is possible that government can deliver. So take, for instance, you can deliver housing below market price by using the existing infrastructure that you have, abandoned infrastructure. So Lagos being the former capital territory, former capital of Nigeria, interestingly has a good number of infrastructure buildings that with federal resource were actually put together, and it's scattered all around the city, a good amount on the island and some other ones outside. You need to begin to look at, okay, how do we repurpose or reuse, readapt these buildings, for instance, to meet the needs of the people, which is pretty much also a common practice elsewhere. I've seen that in Brazil, for instance. I spent a couple of time in Brazil understanding such. So that's the conversation. As against, again and again, we are looking at these abandoned properties, and we are beginning to look at meeting the needs of the 1% of the 1%.
Okay, so let's play around with numbers a little bit, because when it comes to Lagos, thank God we're in Nigeria. We're struggling with population index to say, oh, this is how many we are. But last check, somebody said it was 23 million people that live in Lagos. I don't know. Lagosians do also have a way of. You can fact check me on that, and it makes me wonder. I'm going to say housing deficit, right? You just alluded to 1%. One government would possibly respond with the idea that, so how many people are you talking about that don't have house in Lagos, right? How do you know the number? What data supports those numbers? How do you know the houses that we have abandoned or they have been abandoned? How do you know that those two categories can be matched? Because if in theory, you walk past 3 houses that are abandoned, one will say, they have taken our money, nobody is using the houses. So how do you match that?
Yeah. Okay, so I know Dr. Temilade will want to speak on that too, So number one, government is not going to meet when we give the housing deficit figure now, and depending on where you are trying to even quote from, is not a one bullet solve the entire problem.
Scenario,
yeah. So it's a multiple of different solutions that would be able to help us meet the housing deficit. And it's not something that, we're going to start this year and then eventually everybody in Lagos have a home. But it is very, very essential that that government models what should be. You understand? And you give direction. So in terms of what exists right now in the city of Lagos, the kind of modeling that is going on is that government itself is invested in luxury property development. So you hear government commissioning houses and say it is a luxury apartment. That's a bad modeling to solve the housing deficit. So it is a remodeling and trying to get government to rethink its approach to say there are people at the bottom of the pyramid that we should rather focus on. So particularly in trying to meet that housing deficit, whatever you put it at 7 million, 21 million or whatever, 30 million people who are living in Lagos. So where the error is, first of all, is that action is focusing on those at the top of the pyramid, the 1% of the 1%. But you need to reframe your focus to begin to look at people at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, by the time government begins to do what it needs to do, for instance, you are taking advantage of abandoned public buildings and you are turning them into housing development, maybe particularly on rental, interestingly, but that's to go into details. Even you are beginning to model for the private sector, who has a lot to do, they have a lot to do, which government policy needs to support their action to also begin to copy and to look at you. So you get the picture. So what we have right now is that private developers are doing a whole lot of at the top there, upscale there, and policy is absent. Government is following their trend. Instead of government to look downwards, and you also now model for the private sector what to do for those at the bottom of the pyramid. And with a combination of several actions, you begin to solve the housing deficit problem.
Okay, let me allow you jump in on this.
Yeah, so I agree on what Deji said about government needing to set the standard. It's really important, body language wise, but also in terms of substance wise. We have, let's say 20 plus odd million people in Lagos. I think the numbers don't matter. I think even one homeless person is one too many, right? Or one somebody with. And by the way, we focus on affordable housing or housing. I think a step further is even to say decent housing. Like how many Lagosians actually even have decent. I don't know if you've ever tried to look for a place in Lagos before where you'd be like, this small hole, so you are calling it 3 billion naira per, so, and then you find places where, for the most part, you have the low-income people that the has alluded to, having this face me, I face you, or like we say, face me, I slap you, rental model. I wouldn't say that's the model or that's the standard, for example, for decent housing that we're looking at, right? Now, the government focuses on this model of luxury, as Deji has said, because that's the vision, that's how they want the city to be perceived, right? As glamorous, as this, as that. But the numbers don't. How many people can afford that?
Yeah, and let me follow through on that. It reminds me of in the 70s in Lagos, there was Festac, right? There was those houses. All right, I mean, Festac to date, people get lost. You still get lost because of the zoning structure. It's a similar arrangement you find in places like Yaba, where you have high-rising buildings almost designed for middle-class people at that time. Of course, now we're struggling to define what middle class is across the nation as well. But you also think about those type of buildings, where they were located, and now where even the public buildings we're talking, abandoned public buildings are, where they are located. You'd likely not find a government abandoned building in places like Agege. Now, for those of you who don't know, maybe we should just throw up a Google map of how Lagos looks like. I've had my share of Lagos, so I know my way around a little bit. So you won't find likely abandoned buildings in Agege. But then, if you find an abandoned building on Victoria Island, the question is, how do you size down that kind of a building to meet up with middle-class earners living in a high-income area?
Okay, so let me just quickly follow up on that. So I didn't finish my Grimshaw quote.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It went on to say that architects should design buildings like office buildings and things with the mind to convert it sometime in the future to anything, not because you don't know, right? Life is dynamic, things are dynamic, and all of that. So that's number one. Again, it's very much a mindset, again, private sector working with public sector and all of that. How can an abandoned office or government building in VI, how can it be made habitable and affordable? Like even to middle, we are not even talking about, lower income classes now. Well, the first thing is for there to be enabling laws, statutes, codes to. The other thing is, even if you start from the beginning to think that this building can be repurposed, so for example, the Federal Secretariat building that we were working on, I remember some of the submissions that came in for the redesign. Many of the brilliant young architects struggled to bring natural light. No, because it was the initial design was even the physical design. It was challenging because you had long corridors, long halls without natural light. And so how do you live? So it's like, even physically, it's a challenge to transform that. So one is that, starting with the end in mind, starting to think that, okay, this thing needs to be, and it's been done, our curriculums also need to change, to be dynamic, to absorb, to let people, think wide, that's one. So there's the physical aspect of it. There's also the codes and the policy aspects of it, like I said, government enabling that. Now, in terms of affordability, there will always, we live in this capitalist system, there will always be levels, as we say, right? And no one is saying that, some middle class person should not have their apartment somewhere, depending on if your, salary can. But the main point is, we need to coexist, right? So high, middle, low. So in a complex like that, it would be, okay, let some be at market price, but make quotas, the government mandates quotas to say a certain percentage will be for people who would not normally be able to afford it, and then cross-subsidization happens. When you do that, we underestimate, maybe we don't know the value of social cohesion, the value of that inclusion. So inclusion, you can do it out of the goodness of your heart, but at the end of the day, it's for the good of everybody. It's for that we need that mix. We need mixed income living. And this is one of them. So it doesn't matter. The other thing, the last thing I'll say on this point, so why can't a low-income person live in VI? Is it the low-income person that is going to be the driver of the MD of a bank in the same VI? If that low-income person has access to that, low-income people living in the center of the city, in CBDs, they work there, they service, other sectors of the economy. Why can't they? Why do low-income people have to be coming from Agege? where, the transport costs, the hazards, the everything, it creates bottlenecks and clogs.
Say, don't breathe it out. Just say the words that describe it.
No. So I'm saying, even the interesting thing to me is that even in the utilitarian vision, right, the government has the sort of this capitalist, inclusion is necessary for growth.
Yeah,
that's my, that's my understanding, and that's the reality. We can't be chasing these highfalutin things. We won't get there as quickly and
thinking and behaving like Vegas.
Exactly. If you don't carry everybody along, that's what inclusion means. So you are having your high middle income things, but in the midst of that, we need to create space physically for low income people as well. If it means, and this happens, I don't want to be mentioning cities like New York and all of that, but this happens in many places. Okay, I said Brazil, at least that one is closer. This happens in many places. This happens, I don't know what the policies are, but in Cairo, in an African city like Cairo, people actually manage to live together in the center of the city. Rich, poor, old, young, right? There's something driving that. It's not accidental. It can never be. We cannot leave it to market forces. The government has to step in and show the direction.
Okay. Deji, let me allow you, jump in on this. She has said a lot.
Okay.
I can't even remember my real question anymore. No, but it's brilliant.
I think your real question was trying to investigate why should you ever bring people into this environment? I mean, this is the great Ikoyi built with the people's money. It was the Nigerians, historically, the people themselves, who go and check the history, taxpayers' money. It was a colonial thinking and theory of separation that brought about Ikoyi, that says the city has to be divided. Do you still want to live and breathe on this colonial thinking of we needing to be segregated or separated? But beyond that, it's also obvious that this community needs to be serviced. If you go to Ikoyi today, in all the developments happening, bricklayers are there, they are coming, they are going to work. The gate man doesn't hit in the big man's house. There's one small buka woman somewhere where there are several people who live in Ikoyi today. They have to get an apartment for their driver in Aja. Their cook that they got from Cotonou. You have to house, our people, they like specialness. Even people are doing it right now. Even though our design doesn't, or in our planning, we are not giving room for them. But historically, we have been forced that this group of people exist and they have to service us. For every big area in Lagos, historically, there's always an adjacent slum. That's how Lagos has developed. Because they need people to... Makoko existed to service the rich community of VI then, and that existed today. That's why also in Lagos design today, you still see maid's room. There's a 3-bedroom and 1 maid, because you recognize that there is a service that is needed. There's a group of persons. So it's not strange. It's also you bringing, we are just bringing into the awareness what you are not paying attention to. To say, okay, I think we need to be more deliberate about this. It cannot be exclusively for this group of people. We have people who live in Ikoyi who go to shop in mile 12. Drive down to mile 12. So where is the supposed existence of a local market? Do you want to always buy your tomatoes from the mall? You understand?
Don't even get me started.
So you're saying that this building exists. So it exists inside Ikoyi, and this group of people, you're making provision for them to live their lives, to provide service, to service the community. And this place accommodates carpenters, phone repairers. It has the opportunity for you to have markets on weekly basis, and everybody can come into that space from different places in Ikoyi and come and shop.
Okay, but you mentioned New York earlier, and you also mentioned...
You mentioned
Oh yeah, she did not want to mention New York, but you mentioned Brazil, São Paulo, and I also do know much about Brazil to an extent to say that even with that model being worked on, to say, okay, let's get a healthy mixing somewhere in the middle. There's still some areas that are kind of prone to criminality, and there's that fear that may be something that goes on. But why still thinking about Brazil and Sao Paulo? There's issues of security there, as it is in Lagos, for example. Thinking about the place like Makoko, where it's planks nailed together over water, people make their shelters there and stay there. Government breaks it down after every 9 months or thereabout and says you can't stay here. There's a lot of environmental drama going on in the likes of that, and they break it down. Aja, some part of Aja as well. You have people who pour sand on water to build their buildings, say, I want to be away from every other person. We see human factor also playing out in those terrains, both at the lower level and at the upper level. And makes me interrogate the idea around the fact that if so much so, the land is being expanded or land is being created or shelter is being created when normally shelter would not be created, there must be environmental implications to some of these dramas. So how does that play out into your advocacy and your work with HBS now to be able to balance the fact that people are spreading and at the same time there's need to organize even that spread as we're discussing now?
Okay. The question is to who now?
Yes, to you.
So environmental factors to consider. I think the major culprit is not even the low income groups. The major
why are they not?
So you can see even from the recent report.
No, feel free to jump in. That's why it's a podcast. That's why it's a podcast so that we can cross talk. If you have questions for him too, feel free to ask.
Artisanal makeshift buildings. We're talking of the major construction.
About major constructions. So Lagos now has issues with its bridges because of sand dredging activities.
Yes.
Is it that one that was caused by people of Makoko or the people that built the Orange Islands, the Banana Islands? No, all the three bridges are threatened, according to the federal minister for works and housing. So Lagos quickly has done an embargo on land reclamation. So it is not those communities that are the issue. You understand? It is the major developers who go to places like Oworonshoki, you take the sand and you go and build in Lekki. So when you talk about environmental issues, they are not the factor here. So why also as the communities, I've heard arguments like, Makoko people moved and extended under the power line. Okay, I'll give... When you neglect a group of people as they are, that there is no provision, there is no intervention, because you have this perceived, you were talking about, I didn't, if I hear you correctly, it was like, that very, not, you didn't put it those words, it's like very ungoverned space.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
They are not ungoverned spaces. They are self-governed spaces that have a way that they plan their own life and their urban living. But what we quickly take out and we see is security issues. Like you say in Brazil, say, the favelas and crime. But however, when you go into these places, you discover that they have traditional institutions, they have youth groups, they celebrate festivals. That is to say, they self-govern and their self-governance can be developed, and their self-governance can actually help to capture data and can actually help to establish structure. So it is not an unstructured or unstructurable place. No. These are places that you can go into and you begin to have your interventions and whatever you may consider and say, contraventions. Why are the people extending on that? Stop it here. Okay, in terms of design, what are we looking at? What fits into this community? They are fishermen. They are not going, it's not going to be a thing of brick and mortar, probably for them. No. Okay, wooden structures. How can I call in architects. What can work? We had a floating school at a point. What can work for the people? So it is not somewhere to look at and say, oh, this organization. No, that doesn't exist there. They are self-governed, and we need to do the hard work of going there and putting structures in place and checking whatever, if you say environmental, but really, they are not the ones. The environmental issues that you have is from the big players.
Flooding, and there's a list of them, from flooding issues to fire hazards and the likes of that.
No, let Dr. Temilade speak to
No,
that.
she's I can see she's steaming up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this idea of wanting to blame the victim, like being tempted to blame the victims, I see it everywhere, including in government. No, the problem is not the people. As he said, people have been marginalized, so if you don't want to use the word poor communities, another technical word to use is marginalized. Marginalized means put to the margins, relegated to the margins.
Mm-hmm.
These are people without any social inputs, no proper public health, no proper public education, all of the sort of social indices, social investment, the way that a good government should invest in its people. The government has failed the people on that front. Decent employment. I will quote our F1 colleague who says, do you think that people, so when the government was banning people selling in traffic, do you think that people want to go and be running after cars? To go and say, if you give them a job to do, they will not. It's not like people wake up, or when people are born, they pray, when they do 7 days prayer, they pray that you become a street vendor or no. But it's because of the lack of opportunity, that has driven people. And then people then get into that space. I love Lagosians. Some of the most resourceful, resilient people pushed and backed into that corner. They then begin to make something out of nothing. And then that small something, you now come and want to take it away from them again. What he was saying about the architecture of Makoko, I marvel at it. I'm a former architect.
I suspected as much. It takes an architect to know an architect's code.
So I'll give you a quick anecdote. So Agoyegun is a settlement of the Egun people.
Yes.
Around Bariga. And so going in, I have done some work there with the communities. Going in, you see houses, brick and mortar, built by the more Lagos Yoruba people, right? Lagos, Yoruba people. And brick and mortar, because that's the modern thing. Mm-hmm. And then you go in the rainy season, those houses are flooded. Like they are flooded, they are almost destroyed and all of that. And then you go into the proper fisherman settlement, Agoego, and the water has just, because they have built with the water, not against it. The water has just come in and gone out. I don't know if you've ever been to this wooden soil.
I have.
They are perfect. They are perfect. So perfect in terms of the idea, in terms of the construct, the building of it, the design, right? So it is starting from where the people are. You have this thing. It's technology. You have it. What inputs can the government, private sector, civil society, how can we work with them to, whatever environmental...
Because some would say if you work with them, that means you're also endorsing what they're doing and how they're doing it.
One is they have a right to the city. Please go on.
What are they doing that you have a problem with? The fact that I have my house built with wood?
Yeah, so some would say it's not on the master plan. If you're in Abuja, that's a very
who
powerful
wrote the
phrase.
master plan? Is the master plan the Bible or the Quran? Because those are the spiritual
Do you
books.
think there should be a master plan towards urbanization and urban structures and urban planning, if I would say?
There should be plans. Cities have the right to plan, but you plan for everybody.
And
you plan for and with everybody. So somebody writes a master plan and says this thing has been written for who, by who? Like I said, is it okay? You've written it. Is it a spiritual? Is only the Bible, the Quran, and SFA that probably know that will not change? You understand? So if you've drawn up a plan that has excluded a group of people, it's first of all for us to agree. Do you and I think this group of people have a right to the city? It's the same thing going on in Abuja. There are people who are original inhabitants of the city, then you've done this shiny city. Where are they supposed to be? Should the city accommodate everyone? You know what I say? I say the problem we have, even as probably the middle class is that we just want to escape poverty. We don't see that we need to do something about this, because you and I, we are dreaming one day we will own a house in Banana Island, we will escape the situation. But even Jesus has said, you always have the poor among you. That's what we don't know. We will always have this group of people among us, and we have to plan for it. Our greatest undoing is because we think that one day I will move away. You know, nobody cares about how walkable the street is, because we all dream one day I will buy my Tesla, I'll buy my Honda, and I'll become. So in your mind, you don't think that the streets need to be walkable for the person. Whereas by the time you buy the car and your human activity reduces, you have to hit the gym. By force. You have to walk.
If there's a problem in this life, there must be a solution. With it.
So it's because, first of all, you and I, as we sit here, or whoever is listening, you have to sit down and say, okay, that my carpenter, that my tailor has a right. With the way the city of Lagos is going, for instance, on the rental space, and what is happening in the rental space is crazy.
But we still have to give it to Lagos. They're about the only state that is compelling everybody to pay 1 year rent, not 2 years, and the likes of that.
Yeah, but the agency fees, No, so not to say that the government is not doing anything. And it's also to say that with the best of Lagos, with the best of Nigeria, which is Lagos, still has this issue, which needs to be well redefined. And that's why we need to tackle it, because a lot of people will tell you, okay, Lagos is doing well, and other states are waiting to copy. So before you copy what is not entirely correct, it is important for us to. So it's not to so much dwell and say, Lagos, we are doing better. You are doing better, and somebody is about to copy what is. So what should be the model for Ogun State, for Ondo State, is to start investing in setting up an organization like LSDPC that is now working in partnership with private sector to develop luxury housing, a government-backed agency with taxpayers' money, heavily invested, and clearly says the reason why we exist is to do luxury housing. Come on. You have LBIC, poorly underfunded, is also doing a project. I looked at one project in Alausa, very close to the governor's office. It's called Alausa Heights. That's purely by LBIC, which is one of the agencies that is supposed to service the low income. So tell me, so what exactly are we saying is the best of Nigeria to be copied?
Okay, so let me ask you about your line of advocacy. I mean, what are you doing about it in the space where you work successful? When you say rethinking cities, you've shared some of those high points of the things that should be. And by the way, talking about copying what is not entirely correct, you find that already playing out in places like Ibadan. Ibadan too is getting there, in terms of space, in terms of people, in terms of how, before we could move around in Ibadan and say, I want to buy the Dokere, but now you have to go.
You have to go very far.
You have to go very far. So we're seeing that play out. But when you say rethinking cities, through your work alongside with your partner at HBS, right? How have you been able to rethink cities? And also, this also comes to you as well on rethinking cities. So some would tell you that we already advanced so far with the model we have put up and the culture around housing that it's not a situation of reversing. It's a situation of what can we do with where we are, right? Some would tell you that, okay, well, maybe we'll stamp this thing into law by paper. But we'll just be looking at where it can be implemented. Like it will be easy to implement some things in Ekpe, which is still very arable compared to some other parts of Lagos. So how are you rethinking cities alongside with HBS as your partner?
Have we really gone too far? Or we are in a crisis? Lagos is in a housing crisis. How many people can pay their rent in Lagos right now? How many people? You are in a terrible situation. You have so many houses built in Lagos, unoccupied. Where have we gone? We have not gone anywhere. We have to come back and rethink things. Properties are wrongly valuated. It's a facade. It's a smokescreen. Oh, Lagos life, or what you probably see and say, oh, luxury, and it's all a facade. It's all lies. You understand? It is all real estate money that is going into real estate in a city like Lagos is being questioned. That where is it coming from? You understand? And I don't even, what are the similar opportunities? Okay, you build your banana island. Okay, the banana island has been built or is being built, or Eco Atlantic is being built. Okay, cross subsidy. Somebody is buying a property, $20 billion. I'm an artist. I'm celebrating this. Properties they are quoted in dollars. What funding opportunities do we have from that mega money? Like, okay, let me say we've gone far. Okay, what opportunities are you taking from the buildings that you have in Eco Atlantic to say, okay, how much of this percentage is going to housing intervention in Lagos, elsewhere, in Agege, in Ekpe, in Ikorodu, in Surulere? It is because we're also not thinking that way. Because the developer walks into Alausa and everybody, government official is sitting down with the person and say, oh yeah, tell me the next luxury property development that we are doing, Sarenzo Plaza.
What's my cut on that property?
Then that's the discussion. I say, so how is it going to happen? Yeah, can it come $1 billion? The government official is not saying, oh, there's a policy that says there's a housing fund that we need to do an intervention with, that I would need a 0.5% of this for you to put into that. Okay, you're going to put up this fantastic structure. Can you build another 200 housing units elsewhere that will go under social rent? That, okay, we have a waiting list of people who are looking for social rental.
Is there a list like that?
There is none. And we have elsewhere in the world.
There is not a list like that, but there is a social register.
There's a social register.
Where you can consolidate some of this.
Where you can take advantage of. Yeah. Do you get the thinking? So what the rethinking you're saying is, you're not just sitting down with a developer in the States and they're just discussing the next big capital, the tallest building in Africa, in Eco Atlantic. Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But thank you. But what are you going to do? Which units are you building outside or somewhere or within or elsewhere? Or what percentage of this whole valuation is going to a funding? Because we have realized and saying, oh, okay, land is expensive. This is expensive. Building materials is expensive. So the city has to do cross-funding. You understand? You have to do cross-funding, not just for you to sit down. So the model sometimes that goes with the state government, for instance, is, yes, housing developments are done and certain percentage sometimes go to government. But nobody knows about that. To who? For who? So when you keep talking about, so what we keep doing is that all those coastal communities that we've been talking about and all those communities, the question is, government goes and says, you are not supposed to be there, you are supposed to be evicted, you're supposed to be moved. Moved for who? For what?
And to where?
To where? You don't actually have the what is in contention here is clearly that you don't have any serious plan for this group of people, and there should be. And we have the opportunity. We can take even the high rise, the luxury property development that you're doing. There's an opportunity to take from there. So private developers will tell you that, okay, and why are you saying that I should contribute to a fund? By the way, I pay my taxes. Do you know how much the government billed me, charged me? That is to say, one way or the other, the government already has in its coffers enough money. Government already has money from these projects. Why are you now not thinking of the other person? If this rich person comes and says, I want to do this, and you collected all the necessary permits, you understand? So why are you not, in Lagos State, for instance, it is the responsibility of the Lagos State Ministry of Housing to do housing projects specifically for low-income groups. So why are we not rolling out? Look at the expanse of housing development that was done during Alhaji Lateef Jakonde's era. Land owned, it is as if it is undoable. Again, you spoke about first tax, several communities, which massive.
And of course, the signature is still there to date because people refer to buildings and say Jakonde
buildings,
yes,
and co. But when you check the lag homes that we have now, for who are we building those structures for?
Okay, we'll press for time, but I'll allow you have your take on this so that we'll round off.
Yeah, what he said and some more. So thanks for bringing up the Jakonde era. I was, my mind kept going there. It's a shame that the same vehicle, actually, LSDPC, the LSDPC today, that is playing in the markets, is the same government vehicle through which this low cost. It wasn't just low cost, by the way. There's a lot of low cost, but it was low and middle income housing estates by Jakonde, and it just shows that shift in government thinking. This is really about the thinking. So a few years ago, the World Bank did a report about mental models. They actually the psychology of development, right? And the mental models that people have of development. The mental model of Lagos State, as we are, is this top-down, shiny. I think you were the one that mentioned shiny. Now, let me shock you, as we say. Just last week, we had guests from outside the country coming on this project that we're running, and so we're talking and like, describing. One of them had been to Abuja once from the UK, and then she says, as an just off comment that Abuja, I can imagine why someone wouldn't be comfortable there, because it's such a sterile city. People are not interested in your roads and bridges. Honestly, that's not what makes. Do we need good roads and bridges? Yes, we do, right? But that is not the soul of a city. The soul of a city are its people. You do roads and bridges. By the way, as you're saying, all of the sort of contestations that are coming on the roads and bridges that you paved over, that is like you bulldoze people to, now those things are coming back, to haunt us. When people come into your city, what they want to see is how the welfare of your people, how well cared for are your people. And it shows so this same group, a lot of them, so yes, maybe went to some of the Lekki and co parts of Lagos. But one day, they just want to say, we want to go to the markets. Don't say our markets. We want to go to your open air markets. That's what we want to see, the people. And then they're like, no, I want those yellow buses. I'm like, okay, maybe you can take another. No, I want to take those yellow buses to the market. These are people and they loved it. They loved it. So I think the government usually, and maybe not just the government, all of us, those of us at this table, right? We flip this, the script is backward. Right, development is not about the all these tangibles. It's not primarily about those. Those tangibles exist to serve the people, not the other way around. Another great quote: "Culture was made for man, not man for culture." You can say this, in terms of development policy and governance policy. You make these things serve you, but when it becomes no matter whose interests are pushed aside, no matter who dies in the process, no matter who is dispossessed in the process, no matter who is, it will not be sustained. It will not be tenable, and it has happened before with Lateef Jakonde. It can happen again.
We have to leave it at that so that I can allow you guys to, run into many other things that we've shared for you as well for today. Well, it's been an interesting conversation. A big thanks to Deji Akinpelu of Rethinking Cities Initiative. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Deji is a self-taught photographer and filmmaker and has focused on Africa's development and cultural heritage for over 7 years, documenting the stories of Nigeria's indigenous and marginalized urban communities. So much more can be talked about some of the work that they've done. RCI Advocacy has focused on things like the 2023 Don't Get Elected to Get Us Evicted campaign and many other areas of work he has continued to do. And of course, Temilade, Sesan, doctor, I almost missed out on saying that she was a Ph.D. in Sociology and Social Policy from the University of Nottingham, UK. Her research interrogates the social, political and cultural dimensions of sustainable development initiatives in the areas of housing, transport and urban infrastructure, particularly as they intersect with the issues of gender and informality in Africa. A big thanks to you as well for coming on. All right. And I also must mention she's an architect. She did slip that in, but she didn't want us to hear it. But let me loud it. Thank you so much for being on. And that matters the matter. Thank you as well to the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Definitely, they do work with activists and thinkers in civil society, business and politics to stimulate public debate and action for a socially just and sustainable Nigeria. And our conversation today has really focused on building cities with environmental and development urban planning. And yes, the conversation is brought to you by Fire Radio Co. in partnership with HBS Abuja, produced by Vibing Brands. For more content, follow us at Fire Radio Co. and YouTube at The Volume Pod. You'll be able to see much of these kind of conversations as we have it. A big thanks to you. Don't forget to leave your comments around this, your thoughts, your interrogation. I agree, I don't agree. No, this is so, it is, that's what they did to me. Everybody has some story, but one of the paraphrases I can't miss out on today is the soul of the city is its people. Something I would always now quote the architect who quoted another architect. Thank you so much. I'm Femi D. Amele. Thank you so much for your time.